All right, let's talk about virtual reality. For a long time, it felt like something straight out of science fiction, just for die-hard gamers. But today, it's a huge economic force. The thing is, figuring out just how big it is, well, that's where it gets complicated. So let's do a reality check.
Here's how we're going to break it all down. First, we're going to tackle that big, flashy market size number. Then, we'll look at the corporate giants battling for control. After that, we'll see who's actually using VR, what they're doing with it, and finally, where this whole crazy ride is headed next.
Okay, let's jump right in. Before we can talk about anything else, we have to ask the most basic question of all. When people throw around these massive numbers for the VR market, what are they even talking about?
The number you're going to see everywhere in 2026 is this one, $87 billion. It's a staggering figure for the entire global VR ecosystem. And just think, only about 7 years ago, this market was worth less than $8 billion. That's just wild.
But hold on, because this is where it gets really interesting. That $87 billion number, it's not the only number, not by a long shot. Depending on what you're counting, is it just the headsets, the software, the services, the whole shebang? The answer changes a lot.
In this chart, wow, it just lays it all out there. You've got estimates for 2026 that go from that huge $87 billion figure all the way down to just over $6 billion if you're only counting the physical headsets being sold. So the big takeaway here is that the size of the market really depends on what part of it you're looking at.
Okay, so now that we have a sense of the scale, let's see who's actually fighting for a piece of this multi-billion-dollar pie. This is the new tech battleground, and the competition is fierce.
When it comes to the hardware, the headsets themselves, there is one undisputed king of the hill, Meta. I mean, look at that. Through their Quest line, they own a massive 43% of the market. Sony is holding on to a strong second place with its PlayStation VR 2, which makes sense given how many people own a PS5. And then you have Pico, which is owned by the same company as TikTok, making some serious waves. Now, what's so fascinating here is you can see the totally different strategies everyone is using. You've got Meta going for the masses, with a price tag that's under $300. And then, on the complete opposite end of the universe, you've got Apple with its Vision Pro coming in at $3,500. They're not even playing the same game. They're targeting high-end professionals with this idea of spatial computing.
So we've got all these companies selling millions of headsets. But who are the people actually strapping these things on? Let's take a look at the user base and see just how big this community has become.
Get ready for this number. As of 2026, there are 171 million active VR users worldwide. And let's be clear about what active means. We're not just talking about someone who bought a headset and let it collect dust. These are people using VR at least once a month.
And to really wrap your head around that number, you have to see where it came from. That's a 163% increase in just 6 years. We're talking about a leap from 65 million people in 2020 to where we are today. That's not just growth, that's an explosion.
So, where in the world are all these people? Right now, the United States has the biggest slice of the pie, with 57 million users. But right on its heels, you have the Asia-Pacific region and Europe, and together, they account for another 100 million users. It's a truly global phenomenon.
But here's the thing you absolutely need to know. The map is changing. Fast. The Asia-Pacific region is the fastest-growing VR market on the entire planet, expanding at over 35% a year. That growth is just being supercharged by places like China, Japan, and South Korea. That's where the future is being built. Okay, so we know who's using VR and where they are. But the next big question is, what are they all doing in there? For years, the answer was easy. Just one word: gaming. But trust me, that's not the whole story anymore.
Sure, gaming is still king. It makes up 43% of the market, and that's no surprise. But just look at the rest of this chart. Education, real estate, social platforms, they're all carving out their own space. And that massive 40% chunk labeled Other, that, my friends, is mostly businesses and companies. And that is the real secret here. The biggest, fastest growth in the entire VR world isn't coming from video games. It's coming from the office. Companies are using VR for literally everything. Training new employees, designing products, holding virtual meetings. It's a quiet revolution.
And if you want to see the real-world impact, just look at healthcare. It's already a $10.5 billion market on its own. Get this, studies show that surgeons who train in VR make almost 30% fewer mistakes and work nearly 40% faster. This isn't about high scores. This is technology that is literally saving lives.
All right, for our last section, let's pull out the crystal ball. We've seen this market grow like crazy over the last few years. But, believe it or not, all the projections say we're just getting started.
I mean, just look at this timeline. It's breathtaking. From under $8 billion in 2019 to $87 billion today. But the forecast for 2032, it makes today's number look tiny.
That's the projection. $345 billion by 2032. That's nearly 4 times bigger than where we are right now. Just let that sink in.
To get to a number that big, the market's expected to grow at a compound rate of 26%. Think about that. It means, on average, the entire industry will get more than a quarter bigger every single year. That puts VR in the absolute top tier of the fastest-growing tech sectors on Earth.
And of course, the user base is going to grow right along with it. We're looking at over 300 million active VR users by 2028 alone.
So what's lighting the fuse on this rocket ship? It really comes down to 2 things. First, it's not just for games anymore. It's becoming a critical tool for businesses. And second, the price to get in is dropping like a rock. The average headset is now just $287, which means for the first time, it's competing head-to-head with consoles like PlayStation and Xbox.
Which leaves us with one last big question. As this technology gets cheaper and better and weaves itself deeper into how we work and how we socialize, we have to ask, is VR about to make that massive leap? Is it going to go from being a cool gadget to being the next essential, can't-live-without-it platform, just like the smartphone did a decade ago? Now that is the $345 billion question.